So good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar organized by Gartex Exprocess to know what's next, impact of pandemic on the global apparel market. I'm Priyanka Pawar, Group Exhibition Head of Messe Frankfurt, India, and your host for this webinar. While the apparel industry fights to adapt the new normal, geopolitical and unprecedented health conditions, companies are still working on overcoming the negative impact. The question is, what's the best way to go about it? Joining us today is Mr. Harminder Sahani. Harminder Sahani is, I think, coming late. Mr. Prashant Agarwal, Joint Managing Director, Mr. Wazir Advisors. Prashant has an extensive experience of 26 years in various corporate strategy, business creation, diversification, and performance enhancement, assignments in the textile, apparel, and retail sector for Indian and international market. He's a textile graduate from the Technological Institute of Textile and Science, Bhiwani, and has an MBA from IMS Indore. Joining him today is Mr. Varun Vaid, Associate Director, Wazir Advisors. Varun possesses a total experience of about 18 years in the textile and the apparel sector. His key areas to focus include business strategy, market entry strategy, value chain mapping, policy formulation, inputs, and techno-economic viability assessment. I hand over the discussion to Prashant for his key insights in the industry. Can you please share something more about you and Wazir Advisors to all our attendees, please?
Thanks, Priyanka, for the introduction to Wazir Advisors. I will also thank Max Exhibitions and Messe Frankfurt for giving Wazir an opportunity to share with all the members this findings and presentation. While Wazir Advisors, as pointed out by you also, a lot of people know we are consultants across value chain from fiber, yarn, fabrics, and garments. We do strategy, joint ventures, merger and acquisitions, operations improvement. Myself, I have delivered projects in more than 35 countries worldwide. So we are truly global because this is a global industry and you need to understand the whole industry to be able to suggest something. So because being connected with the whole globally this industry, we are able to understand the viewpoint, what's happening in this industry at this moment from buyers in US, in Europe, in Japan. We have done for domestic market analysis also. We are connected with all brands and retailers. Then at the same time with the manufacturers, that how they are reacting when to these situations, what they are doing at this moment. So in quick time, we are able to do this together, understand view from the people who matter. And when we put it together, because, you know, everybody is talking to each other at this time. It's not that everybody is connected, but to put it together in a perspective, what it means for the business is very, very important. That how, when things open up, everybody is in the same boat. When things open up, what it will mean for India, what it will mean for Indian companies, how it will be for other countries, competitive countries. So all of this needs to be understood in a right flow so that one can take inference, understand. Different companies will have different viewpoints that they can take out of this presentation. Built in their strategy, how they will move forward. It will motivate the teams also and will understand the reality also where it stands. So
thank you, Prashant. And I would like to take a minute to introduce Mr. Harminder Sahani, Managing Director of Wazir Advisors. Harminder has worked for over 2 decades as a management consultant in the consumer goods, retail, and textile sector. He has advised some of the most reputed Indian and international companies on corporate strategy, business creation, diversification, and performance enhancement. Welcome, Mr. Sahani.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Happy to be here.
Thanks, Harminder, for joining, and Varun, and then again for all the participants. I think how the whole format will be of this discussion, where I have given you the initial brief, how we have done this survey. We have taken a lot of reports, a lot of buyers, a lot of manufacturers into account in different countries to come out with this report. Definitely nobody can predict anything in certain terms at this moment, but we have tried to take into account all factors and try to project how things are, how the scenarios will be, and what's the way forward. And there is a chat in the chat box. You can keep asking your questions. Priyanka will coordinate so that we can put together all questions after our presentation and way forward discussion is over. And in that Q&A, we can ask these questions, and we would like to try and our best to answer these questions. With me, Harminder and Varun, all three of us will like to answer all your queries to best of our understanding. I think with this, Priyanka, can we go ahead and
Yes,
start
please.
the
Yes,
presentation?
please. Yes, please.
Varun, can you upload and then get things started, and I'll come in between and be part of this?
Yeah, sure. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes. Yes, Varun.
Yeah. Okay. Prashant, maybe you can just introduce a little bit and then we can start off.
Yeah, see, again, as I have already briefed, but as Gartex, all members, I can say last year, also we are partners with Max Exhibitions and Massive Frankfurt. Denim was the key theme last time. So this is a forum earlier, this exhibition. Now, I hope everything gets as what is planned to happen in August. We will have different themes and be connected with you. With this, I think let's go ahead with our presentation, have the findings shown to people, and then we will have the way forward will be interesting to discuss.
Sure. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. So what we are going to present here today is our research finding on the impact of coronavirus on the biggest apparel markets of US, Europe, and Japan. So all these three markets are not only the biggest in the world, but they are also the most prominent buyer markets for India also. So whatever happens in these countries is directly expected to impact our supply base as well. So what we're going to today discuss is the big fall, apparel consumption shrink by $328 billion in US, EU, and Japan. In next few slides, we'll be discussing why and hows of all these numbers that we have projected. So brief agenda, what we are going to discuss today is what are the key impacting factors for the apparel consumption, apparel market as of now. There are two. One is the lockdown, the other is economy shrinkage. What will be the expected impact of all this scenario on the apparel consumption and proportional impact on imports? Then what is the current and expected sourcing scenario? Who will emerge as the gainer? Which country will lose out? And then finally, a brief message for Indian textile and apparel industry. So moving ahead, if we look at the lockdown scenario in different parts of the world, let's start with US and Europe. We've seen that in US, by first week of April, most of the states underwent the lockdown scenario. In Europe, actually the lockdown started as early as 10th March when Italy declared that they will be under lockdown. And then as late as 24th March, few countries like UK and Poland, they went into the lockdown situation. So as of now, if you average out, so by end of March, everything was under lockdown. A research report released by BCG on March 26th suggested that the lockdown could end in US in the week of mid-June, in second week of June to third week of July. And they also projected by the same time, different countries in Europe will also open up. So what it means for our apparel consumption is that there will be a total 3 to 4 month closure of all the brick and mortar physical fashion stores across US and Europe. We already know that most of the brands, whether it is Adidas, American Eagle, Bestseller, Gap, Macy's, Nordstrom, Patagonia, everybody has already declared that their stores are going to remain closed for unforeseen timeline. However, in Japan, the situation is a little bit different. As of now, there is no official lockdown. In 7 of the prefectures out of total 47, the state of emergency has been declared. But even that state of emergency just authorizes governors to request people and businesses to comply with social distancing guidelines and not go for the non-essential businesses. Research done by McKinsey in the last week of March, on 23rd and 24th of March to be exact, revealed that actually Japanese consumers are not too much worried about COVID-19 impact on their income and spending. So the growth of COVID virus was not very prominent at that point in time, and they were not too worried about this situation. What has happened there is that because of no lockdown, the local retailers are still operating their stores, but with reduced working hours. While on the other hand, some of the international retailers have actually closed their stores from the first week of April, and they declared it will be only for 4 weeks. So there is a contrast here that US and Europe are completely under lockdown, and Japan is under partial lockdown. And if you look at the economic scenario, there all three economies are not expected to do great. What we were expecting at the turn of this year was that all the three economies will be growing at whatever percentage, 1%, 2%, something like that. But because of this coronavirus, the GDP projections have turned down negative. On 26th of March, Economist Intelligence Unit released its report wherein it projected that Japan's economy will degrow by 1.5%, while USA will degrow by 2.8%, and finally EU by 5.9%. A week thereafter, another research report came by ING Group, where they said that even the best case, the US economy will shrink by 3.6%. And even they projected a worst case scenario where all the three economies were doing 14 to 16% shrinkage. So different scenarios are there, different reports are coming, but the broad level consensus is that even in the most likelihood case scenario, USA's economy will shrink by 3 to 4%, EU will shrink by 5 to 6%, and Japan to 2 by 3%. So these two factors, the close down of stores and GDP projections, will have direct impact on what the apparel consumption will happen in 2020. For example, in EU, if somebody wants to buy apparel, only online stores are the option. But consumers are primarily focusing on grocery, medicines, and staple purchases as of now. Apparel purchasing, everybody is delaying. Even in India also the same situation is happening because there is no urgency to replenish. The economic scenario is uncertain. And there are no occasions for people to move out. Schools, offices, restaurants, gyms, etc. Everything is closed. And whatever online stores are selling, there is a very limited product option. The deliveries are also quite late and very expensive. Now what happens is, if you look at the right side of the screen, there is a chart where we have projected how the consumption will move on a monthly basis. So for example, every month there was 100% consumption on a normal basis. In March, because half of the month was under lockdown, so immediately the consumption went to 50%. We projected it in the beginning of April, but recently, only yesterday, the new US government report has come and they are saying exactly the same thing, that the apparel store sales has gone down by 50% exact number. And when it is under lockdown, only 10% of the consumption will happen in US. But once the lockdown is over, we are expecting it to be over by July. Immediately, there will be a rapid build up towards the normalcy. And within 2 months, we are expecting that US market will go to the 100% level. On the other hand, EU is a bit conservative society compared to US. The US is a more consumerist society. The people are compulsive buying. They are more younger in terms of demography, and they have a very, have a flair of spending money on these things like apparel. So the growth, while EU will start opening at the end of June, so the growth will not be immediately from 5 to 50% or 5 to 80%. It will go from 5 to 25%, then to 50%, and then over a period of 4 years, it will stabilize for the overall period. Now, if we take the averages of all these 12 months, what we can understand is that in EU, the average consumption will only be 59% this year, while in US, the average consumption will be a bit higher at 63%. So that's going to be the average scenario. On top of it, there is an impact of GDP shrinkage. GDP shrinkage means the people will be having less discretionary income. They will be focused on other things. The money in hand will reduce. So that will additionally impact. So net, what we're expecting is that the EU market, the net impact will be 45% lower consumption, while in US, the impact will be 40% lower consumption. In Japan, where there is a partial lockdown, not complete lockdown, and people are still okay with, not too much worried about COVID virus. So the impact is expected to be a bit lower, and only 20% market degrowth is expected in this market. Putting these percentages into numbers in terms of $1 billion, how much will be lost? In 2019, the total market size, combined market size of all these three regions was $814 billion. And with all the percentage projection that we have done, it is expected to come down to $486 billion. That's a $328 billion loss. Japan will come down from 100 to $80 billion. USA will come down from 273 to 165. And Europe, the biggest fall will be there. From $440 billion, the consumption will come down to $240 billion. Now, if the markets are closed, the retail stores are closed, and market consumption is not happening, that will be a commensurate impact on the imports also. So taking the numbers to imports, in 2019, the total apparel imports of all these three regions was $308 billion. Japan was the smallest partner while Europe was the largest partner. If we just project the same percentage numbers here on imports, what we see here is that instead of $308 billion, we can look at the apparel import. We can expect the apparel import to be in the range of $180 billion. That is a reduction of $128 billion in apparel imports this year. So that's a big number. Huge number is going to shrink in the apparel imports this year. What are global brands and retailers saying? We have watched a lot of news items coming about the retailers. Most of them are saying that we'll not be able to honor our commitment. A handful of them like H&M, PVH, Target, Bestseller. These are the ones they are saying, fine, whatever we have ordered, place the order, we will definitely pay for them under the agreed payment conditions. But you look at the other one like C&A, the big names, TJX, Macy's, Ross Stores, Primark, L Brands, everybody is saying that we are forced to invoke the force majeure clause, will not be able to will not be able to honor our commitments, and we'll have to cancel the orders. Primark, for example, specified that we are losing sales of 650 million pounds a month. So there is no chance that we will be able to lift the goods that we have placed, that we have ordered earlier. So they are canceling even the orders of goods which are in transit. So that's the kind of a retail scenario at this moment. So what will happen if we are saying that $128 billion will come down from apparel imports? Buyers will not import too much of stuff. So who will gain? Which countries will gain? Which countries will lose? So there could be broadly three scenarios. The first scenario is that China loses significant market share, and that share is taken up by other competitive countries. For example, we know in US, Vietnam is a very competitive country. In Europe market, Bangladesh is also a very competitive supplier of garments there. So these are the two prominent countries which stand to gain from China's share. In scenario 2, we have developed that if China loses share, that's there. If India is also somehow able to capture some of the market share left by China, what will happen? So we'll come to that part. And then third is that again, China will play its price card. It will lower the prices of its commodity and again try to capture or try to maintain the share that it has. So it will be a status quo. A very small note about India's exports. We have to understand that the market is expected to open by second half of the year. And by second half of the year, it will already be buying for autumn and winter season. So when you're buying for autumn and winter season, India's products are not very competitive. We are more known for cotton-based products and women's value fashion wear product. But winter wear, synthetic wear is something we are not very prominent. We have entered into this coronavirus situation a bit late. China was there early and it has already come out. So by the time the market opens, China will already be manufacturing at its full throttle. And it will also be able to supply fabrics to Vietnam and Bangladesh, which for the time being are not able to produce anything at all. So for scenario 2 to happen, it is very important that two things happen simultaneously in India's export landscape. First is that we should improve our competitiveness core categories, because there is a chance that China will reduce the prices. And second is that we need to focus immediately on the products which we are not manufacturing. Those are mainly synthetics or man-made products such as winter wear, sports wear, active wear, etc. So coming back to the scenario, so if we go one by one market, let's say for example, if we discuss the US market scenario, the top 10 suppliers of US, if we project them, look at them, so the biggest one is China. In last 3 years, the share of China in US market has reduced from 34% to 30%. It has come down, while the gainer has been Vietnam, which has grown from 14% to 16%, and Bangladesh also to some extent from 6 to 7%. India is the fourth largest supplier, but the share has been very, very stagnant. It's only 5% in last 3 years, so we have not grown at all. So these are the three largest suppliers. So our scenarios, if we put the number on US market, so in scenario 1, what we had projected is that China loses share to Vietnam and Bangladesh. In scenario 2, we are saying that India is also able to gain something out of that. And then third is there is no change in the market share. Let's go to scenario 1, which is most likely scenario in current context. So what we're expecting is that China's share is 30% as of now. It is already coming down from 34 to 30%. We are expecting that the share shrinkage will be much faster, and this year it will only be able to capture 25% market share. So it looks like we are projecting too much number, but the latest numbers are out till February, and the market share of China has in 2 months is only 20%. In February it was 18%, and earlier it was 25%. So around 20-21% is the market share as of now. And the gainer, as we said, Vietnam will be able to reduce the gap between itself and China From 16%, its share will move up to 20%, and Bangladesh will move up from 7% to 9%. And India will be worst impacted. Its share will actually reduce. Will be losing out the share from 5%. Will only have a 4% share in this year in the US market in the scenario 1. Who will be the category-wise gainers in US market? This is also very important to say. If you're saying that China will lose share, China will lose share. First of all, it is not going to happen in all the categories. There will be selective categories where China may lose share. Again, China losing share is a big deal. We'll come to that maybe in the question answer session, that why China cannot lose too much of share. So if you look at the top 20 categories which US is importing, 81% of the share is value is considered in these 20 categories. And in 13 of them, China is the largest supplier. In 7 of them, Vietnam is the larger one. So the category where China is not the largest suppliers are the categories where there is still a chance, if a competitive exporter is there, they can take up the share. For example, if we talk about men's and boys knit shirts made of cotton, basically t-shirts, China is having 12% share. Vietnam is having share higher than China, which is 13%, and even India has a good share of 9%. So chances of China losing share is very high in this category, and India could be a potential gainer because it's already having a decent share of it. On the right side of the table, we have highlighted the segments where India stands to gain in US markets. India can gain. One is the t-shirts we talked about. The other is cotton tops for women and girls. Third category is synthetic dresses. Fourth is woven cotton shirts. Fifth is cotton undergarments. Sixth is babies garments. And the final one is women's tops made of synthetic garments, woven tops. So these are the 6-7 categories where India stands to gain from Chinese market. Coming to the EU market, we see here that there is a lot of European suppliers also within this market share, where China is only having a share of 15%. It is the largest supplier. And again, here the share has reduced in last 3 years from 17 to 15, it has come down. And Germany and Bangladesh both have a kind of a 10% share in the market. And India is struggling in European market for last 3 years. Our share has reduced from 3.1 to 2.9%. It doesn't look like only 0.2% share doesn't look a big number, but look at the opportunity which is there. We are only having 3% share in this big market. Another important point for this year is that Vietnam will get duty-free access to Europe under FTA. And the share of Vietnam, which is like 2% in normal days, is expected to grow from this year onwards. Moving to the scenarios, we project that China, Italy, and Spain will lose share. China definitely we have discussed earlier, but Italy and Spain, because being hit very hard by coronavirus, the industrial manufacturing, etc., is totally stopped, and restarting of manufacturing activity will also take a longer time there. So we're expecting that they will lose market share considerably. They will halve their market share, while Bangladesh, Turkey, Poland, and Vietnam, all 4 having duty-free access to European market, will gain the share. So from 15% share, China will lose share, but only that share will be 1% drop. In terms of value, it will be 50% drop. From 30 billion, we're expecting it to go down to 15 billion. But in terms of market share, it will only be 1% loss. Italy will and Spain will definitely be losing half of their market share. Bangladesh will emerge as a winner. From 10%, it can go up to 13%. Turkey, Poland, and Vietnam will also add 1 or 2 points to their market share. India, again here, from 3%, we are expecting that if we do not do anything, if we do not protect our core categories, if we do not diversify into other products, we'll be losing our share from 3%. There's a risk that we'll go down to only 2%. And there'll be a 55% business loss in European markets. Same analysis we have done for European market, where we identify that cotton products and ladies wear products, whether it is dresses or synthetic tops, etc., are the categories where Indian manufacturers can still take some share, which will be vacated by China. Now, Japan is, again, in terms of retail also, it was very different. In terms of imports scenario also, it is very different. It's a very concentrated market towards China. China is having almost 57% share. No doubt it has also come down from 63.7 to 57%. But the second exporter is a very distant country, which is Vietnam, with only 15% market share as of now. And the rest are only minuscule with 1 or 2% share. Now imagine India. India has a free trade agreement with Japan, right? And the total imports of Japan is almost $28 billion. But India is exporting apparel only worth $280 million. So our share is hardly 1% in the Japanese market. So the game here will be mainly between China. If China loses share, so Vietnam and Bangladesh, maybe some of the ASEAN countries may be able to gain in the Japanese market. So if we say that China will go down, again, the shrinkage will not be too much. From 57%, we are expecting it only to go down by 55%. Vietnam will grow, and the others like Bangladesh, Cambodia, and Myanmar will also grow to certain extent. India, as we discussed earlier, also only $280 million of apparel supply. It also, there is a risk that we will fall to only 200 million this year. Similar category analysis we have done, and we have found out that cotton categories and ladies wear are the products where we can still manage some of the higher market in Japanese market. So just to summarize, we have talked too many numbers, just to put perspective here. Now we'll talk only about Indian exports. So in different scenarios, we have just consolidated and put here. So in last year, we had exported almost 10 billion worth of garments to these countries, EU, US, and Japan. And this year, we stand under scenario 1, we stand to lose almost 53% of that business. $5.2 billion is the projected shrinkage in our apparel exports to these economies. $4.7 billion will be the only exports. In scenario 2, which is kind of positive, what we have projected, even then we are saying that we need at least a shrinkage reduction of 25% of exports. And if nothing changes, China is maintaining its share, everybody does, even then we'll be losing $4.2 billion in our apparel exports. So that's the kind of a crux that take away from the presentation slide. So moving on to the emerging changes in global textile and apparel landscape, I would request Prashant, just please take up here.
Thanks, Varun. I think you have really put the numbers in perspective, and if you go through the numbers, a lot of things can be revealed out of the numbers. And it's important to see where we are strong and what we can further do in those categories itself to really increase our exports and maintain our share. But before going further into it, we have to first understand some of the important emerging changes which are happening. And for example, first and foremost, investment shift. We have all seen that Japan has already announced that they will be supporting all companies who will be moving out, who are ready to move out of China and want to invest elsewhere. So Japanese have got very good relations with India. The car manufacturers have invested. So other electronics manufacturers. Why can't textiles and apparel industry be invested with in collaboration with Japanese companies? So that's a good opportunity for us. Not only Japanese, the Europeans, the US, and the Koreans. So all of those will be looking for options to go beyond China. Then there is a sourcing shift we are talking about. While buyers, the way investment shift is being talked about, the buyers are also trying to facilitate vendors to new manufacturing locations. When I say a sourcing shift, I'm not saying that people will move from China, as Varun told in his presentation, that already vendors, the Chinese have started manufacturing. They had a head start because it came earlier to them, and then now they are almost back on foot, and then there are almost 50% of production is on. But the other point also is, if you see in last 3 years, US imports from China has come down from 34% to 30%. That means buyers from last 3 years are trying to shift from China. Now the urge will be much bigger. Urge will be to the extent, for example, if somebody, while they have a lot of challenges, financial challenges, logistic challenges, the labor training issues, but still buyers have opened their offices and they're trying to push that as a one destination for garment export because it's duty free across the world. And they are going a step further. They are giving 10% higher price points also to really manufacture in Ethiopia. But I'm not saying in India they will give better price points, but they may facilitate so that buyers can come and invest in countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, all these places, so that they can shift out of China. So a better leverage one can have, but when you talk to, at the same time, when you talk to brands and retailers, they say that, see, we have been talking for so long, we have gone all over the place, but we could not find players or manufacturers who can give the right timely deliveries, give scale, give product variety and the price points. So these things which China offer, unless until somebody else starts offering, how can you shift? So even with an option, I think the shift may not be very fast. It will be slow, because unless until we develop these capabilities and investments are done in these lines, it's not easy to really go for a shift. So investment shift, sourcing shift, and technical collaborations, because there are so many areas where we are talking about the top categories where trade is huge, but India is not present at all. The share is less than 1%. So in those categories, so many people have not invested. One, because they feel raw material is not available at competitive prices, or they see that know-how is not there, the people are not there. So at these times when people are, the Japanese, the Koreans, some of the US, European companies, they are collaborating. One can really see that the know-how one can get from there. The technical collaborations can happen, know-how can happen. So with these put together, there is a chance of growth of sourcing and investments. Then at these times, as people are becoming health conscious, even product development innovations are already happening. For example, in denim, advanced denim, China has introduced antibacterial and environmentally safe denim fabrics. So people are already, without adding anything to the cost. While in manufacturing, the cost get added, the suppliers are saying, okay, I supply you at the same price, because they want consumers. The key for all of these projections is, even if a store opens, consumer comes and buy. He comes and buy grocery, he comes and buy fashion, he comes to buy needed-based products, he comes and buy home textiles. So what he buys will depend on, because he already has garments, so are you giving them better options? Because these are not normal times. One has to see that these are not normal times. So product innovation is again one of the key that people have to come up with and offer to brands and retailers. Then we are talking about changing retail paradigm. This is something new. While everybody was moving towards fast fashion, now a lot of luxury brands, a lot of other brands are talking about, can we move from fast fashion to slow fashion? What do we mean by fast fashion to slow fashion? They are saying, can we have fewer, smaller, and more seasons with less collections, and move to seasons with less collections and fewer markdowns? People are fed up that you come out with a product and every 2 months you have markdowns, and now you are not able to sell at full price. So suddenly a jacket you have launched in market, and 4 weeks it's become okay. Now it can be sold at 50%, 70% price, because it's no more in fashion. So they are saying that whatever goods and inventory we have in place, we have made those goods. They are such good goods. Can't we go ahead and sell it till September, October, instead of saying no, new season, like the way Varun was saying, new seasons, new options, old season has gone. What do you do with the inventory? So people are saying, when we have made products, can we have fewer markdowns and season-less collections? That's again one trend which is picking up in the market. So these are some of the trends leading from investment, sourcing, collaboration, product innovation, and changing retail paradigm. I think there are different people. There are almost around 500 people on this webinar. And I would say that every company has to see that what changes fit into their organization and which can help them to move forward in the times. And we have to remove or take out all the preconceived notions at that time. The way business was happening, it was there. So you want to take a next step, forget about earlier we used to think that, okay, from our experience, this is not going to happen. No, we have whatever idea comes, we have to try. You don't know who will say yes or no for this. So these are very, very important trends or changes we are saying, which will define our future strategy. Varun, can we go to next slide? And again, when we are talking all this investments, any factory to be set up, even if it's a garment factory, to make it up and running, it takes time. And again, to reach to a competitive level, it takes further time for stamina building and all. So are we saying that all of this opportunity one can really take advantage of it by investing on their own? No. I think that's that's a model that we are talking about. Three-way virtual integration, and this one has to think because one has to focus on productivity and cost competitiveness. That's what Varun said, that the products you can be very good, but people are ready to move from China, saying this is what China was giving in terms of productivity, cost competitiveness, timely delivery. Can India give? So maybe some kind of advantage one can give, but not that, okay, whatever India is giving, I am fine, let's start taking from it. No. So when you talk about this, then three-way virtual integration, we are saying, if a fabric player is there, he has, earlier they were doing transaction, okay, this is the garment order you have, this is the fabric you need, this is the price points, I am going to deliver by this date. Now can we go forward? Can the garmenter, with the help of fabric and yarn player, do more sampling, get more orders, give more options to buyers, and then garmental, while giving fabric to fabric player, while giving fabric to garmenter, can think of that, okay, I take my cost initially, and then he's able to say sell more, and I take the share further. So can we think of models where we are saying, no, everything not at one go, let everybody earn and let everybody share, from yarn, fabrics to garments? It has to be thought of, because India is one country where there are anchor big players, there are MSMEs, there are smaller players, unorganized players. So how do we collaborate together to be a force who can supply larger quantities at competitive prices and competitive services? I think it can only happen when we have a kind of virtual integration. That's very, very important. One of the entities has to take lead, work with partners, ensure timely delivery of goods, and everybody shares and gains in the process. That's the way forward. Just to give an example, denim jeans, India is one of the biggest manufacturers of denim fabrics. There are good denim manufacturers also, garment manufacturers in India. We are supplying to Levi's, Pepe, Wrangler, everybody. They are buying from India and selling in Indian market from these stores. But is it that we can't support them to really organize whatever they are missing and start exporting? Why we have to sell fabrics to Bangladesh, to Tunisia, Morocco, and then get the garments made, they do the value addition and then export? Otherwise, our denim fabric capacities are always underutilized, just because we don't have a kind of collaboration between fabric and denim manufacturers. So again, just to give you an example, a lot of people are all connected with the retail industry also. Today, if Raymond's open a store, they will tell them this is how interiors will be, this is how sales boy, this is how fabrics will be stacked up. So you help them. They are there at the front end managing the whole business, but the person who is the anchor has to support in totality. That's what denim fabric manufacturers have to do. Unless until this is not thought of, again, business will be as usual. Varun has given scenarios. We'll be losing wherever we'll be losing. If you move to the next slide, Varun, these are some of the important examples I have taken, whether it's denim, polo shirts, crew neck shirts, men's inner wear. We are strong in these categories, and we can make a big impact there. And now if you move on from here, I think my next slide, please, just for the benefit of.
There is some problem. It is not moving. Just
okay, not an issue. So when we are saying we have to identify new categories, I have told the market is big today. $480 billion is garment market size. Overall, textile and apparel trade is around $830 billion. So when this big trade is happening, there are so many categories that we are not present because of one reason or the other. So we collaborate and really move into those categories. Market is big, so penetration is possible. So I think synthetics and technical textiles are two big categories where our domestic market is also growing. Our international market is already big. So if one enters into these segments, can focus both on domestic and exports. That's a big advantage. Varun explained in Japan, like $28 billion worth of trade, and we are exporting to $80 million only. We have almost no share, kind of, while China has almost around 60% share. So can we, and what you need for Japan, when you can supply to US and Europe, the difference is they want consistency and timely delivery. So they don't want that finally whatever is agreed has to be supplied on a regular basis. Once they are a partner, they are kind of partner for life. I think we have to change our mindset to be able to supply to Japan. It's a big, big market. Similarly, we can explore other markets also, whether Australia, whether Canada. So many markets can be explored. And the last point I want to make is that for India, having their complete supply chain, the advantage is all the brands either are present through their stores here in India, have their buying houses, are buying through buying houses, have their own offices here. So it's a question of if they're buying 4 to 5% of their total share from India, then can we move from 5% to 10%, 10% to 15%. So these buyers, everybody is present and we can market through them. The only thing is we have to understand their needs and change our organization to suit to their needs in terms of service, products, pricing, and then do it. And these are the times where again, everybody is back to the wall. This is the time that one has to move and see that whether through brands present over here, whether through getting into new markets, whether new products, cost competitive, all things have to be tried, keeping the trends in mind. I think this is what we want to say. The message is clear, is while we are talking, when numbers are being talked about, it's talked about from the country perspective. But when we really look within, it's from company to company you have to look within. Like every company has to see what are their strengths, what advantages they can take and move forward. So at least in these times, business can come back to where it was instead of then if we have built in these times, I think we can take forward in future when business will be much, much better. So with this, I think these are the views that we have built for domestic market also, which will be ready in a day or two and then launching next week. We've done for home textiles. We are studying different segments. We'll keep sharing all this with you people so that all our findings can help you plan the business, which is very uncertain at these times. Thank you. Thanks. And I think Priyanka would have taken some questions which have come. Any questions otherwise will be welcome so that we can answer this through this Q&A session.
Yes, Prashant, I have a lot of it and be ready for the bombarding of questions on you guys.
Yeah, sure. Not.
I think the first I would like to address Mr. Prakash Dania's question. What is the future of baby wear during and after COVID? And what should be an approach as a manufacturer?
Harvinder, can you take on? We were just talking about baby wear, yeah.
Sure. So I think we have been trying to look at different product categories like fashion textiles or fashion apparel, fast fashion, essentials, core products within that home textiles, baby wear also. And our belief is that baby wear, when we talk about and we are talking about infants and toddlers, I think most of the clothing falls under essentials and utility items that people are concerned about the hygiene, people are concerned about the protection, and what they have to buy, they will buy. And some of the data which is coming from US retail in the month of March also, as well as from Europe, unless until a complete lockdown, there has been no dip in these categories. The sales is still happening. Issue will come primarily from the supply side because the factories are closed down. So how will the supply be built up there? But I think baby wear as a category, specifically for infant and toddlers, I think it will get impacted, but it should be one of the least impacted categories globally.
Yeah, Priyanka.
Thank you, Harvinder. Mr. Ronish is asking, once the country is back on track, what role will trade businesses from China have? As people in different parts of the world have seemed to develop a hatred towards China, will the complete demand on fabric be diverted towards Indian manufacturers?
Yeah, again, I have explained in presentation time again. Anything will get, assuming that because there is some sort of hatred or sentiments which are there, people will divert, not thinking whether Indian manufacturers can make those quantities with those qualities, with those delivery times, with those price points. I don't think that shift is. This is being over optimistic. Being there, we are talking to retailers directly. Nobody is of this sentiment that whatever comes may, we will not buy from China. It's no sentiment like this at all. So while there'll be a shift, those are the advantage we can take. But if we sit here and see that, okay, because people will not buy from China, they'll come to us. I think this is over optimistic.
Thank you, Prashant. Another question is from Mr. Swapnil Vyas. He wants to know for small scale industry, if they would like to extend their international trade business, do you see any future that's favorable or not favorable for them?
I would answer in basically two ways. Definitely, one way when we are saying anchor-led model or when we are saying virtual integration, this is the key for MSMEs, because MSMEs, when you want to market yourself directly there are a lot of cost involved. Why Chinese are so successful even with their high labor cost? Because their fixed cost is really, really low because of their scale. Today, MSMEs have to understand that, okay, they are the owners, they have businesses, they can manage their business cost effectively, but they have to collaborate with others to go abroad. So one has to find platforms where one can collaborate and export, instead of saying, let's go all out in this market, where definitely buyers will be looking more from buying with, there is a consolidation happening in the market. Before COVID itself, there was consolidation happening, where buyers are like they would like to buy from credit-worthy suppliers, bigger suppliers in India also. So if you connect with them, give them the kind of service they will need, develop faith and trust, I think that's a better way for MSMEs than saying. Otherwise, market is open, and there are smaller boutique players in Europe which have been buying from SMEs, will continue buying from MSMEs. They don't want to buy from bigger players. So, but saying that in this market, let's go, I think for that one has to wait for some time, because trust is also a factor, that they would like to buy more from existing suppliers than trying new and expanding their width at this time. This is what I feel.
Thank you. Ashwinder wants to ask Harminder why we, that is Indians, are okay with so less proportion share for Japan, EU and USA. This COVID-19 situation gives us great opportunity to bounce back as much bigger and in a bigger way. Let's identify what's missing, why we fail to delivery, while we fail on delivery. One second, I think I missed this question.
Okay, no, I've read the question also.
Yes, okay. Harminder, I think you should take it forward.
See, I think in general, we are a very large country with tens of thousands of suppliers and manufacturers. So yes, when one has to make a generic statement, one can say that about delivery and consistency, all of that. But fact of the matter is, we are, even in all that circumstances and with all that reputation, we are doing $16 billion worth of apparel exports. Otherwise we should not be doing even one garment export, because we are so bad. So if we are competitive enough up till 16 billion, I think that, and that is not that somebody sitting there is doing 16 billion. There are thousands of companies individually, entrepreneurs, small and medium enterprise, large companies put together. This is what is happening. So I think Prashant also stated that in his presentation also, that each company has to look within and around themselves in terms of their suppliers and their customers. Just focus on that part, that how can we do more than what we have been doing till now. First is, how do we retain the business which we have, and then how we grow from here, because there is an opportunity that there is a pressure on China, and there is a demand from Japan, and that they are in certain categories, even US and Europe may like to increase their sales, their imports from India. So within that, every individual company, every individual entrepreneur, along with their people, with their customers and with their suppliers, need to look at it, how do they grow their business, rather than trying to look at a general analysis of what is missing in India. Because if there was something in general missing in India, then we should not be doing any exports. So let's focus on what we have, what our strengths are, and grow from there. Because I think at this point of time, that is the most important thing to do. Because otherwise, the way the markets are shrinking globally in this uncertain times, we could land up in very, very serious trouble if we try to overanalyze, or we try to become over adventurous about trying new things at this point of time.
Thank you, Harminder. Prashant, I think this goes back to the conversation that we had before the webinar, that US government is giving money to every US citizen to overcome this challenge. Do you think once COVID is over and markets open, we see a big buying demand immediately, considering people have money in hand?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, this is one important fact in US is that this is a year where presidential election is going to, so they will put more money than what in hands of people. Today also they have released that they're saying they'll give $450 billion around that money for MSMEs. $2.4 trillion package they have already released. So and there will be many more as things progress. So money in the hands of people. That's why we are saying that as soon as lockdown opens in different scenarios, US will jump back fastest. So and they will have money. They are going to spend. For example, home textile is one segment where we expect that because of the hygiene factor, post-COVID, there will be a lot of replacements of bed sheets and towels, and even in hospitality industry, in healthcare industry. So there will be a jump of consumption in certain segments in US more, because more money in the hands of people.
Thank you, Prashant. We've got a couple of questions from Mr. Piyush. I think I will take one by one. Europe and US down, but what is the chance of PP fabric market there?
PP fabric markets,
yes.
But see, again, at these times, I would say I was talking to a lot of manufacturers of or machine manufacturers of PP fabrics, and there has been so much of new investments which are happening in US, Europe, and even in China. The bigger companies are investing more and more, because everybody knows that people will be more health and hygiene conscious, and a lot of governments will go for higher budgets for spending in healthcare industry. So because they will be prepared for any eventuality next time. This is suddenly has come to them, and they were not prepared. So I would say, first of all, for PPE fabrics, one has to see domestic market in India, then looking for European markets, because there are a lot of investments which have already happened. But yes, because there will be need of PPE fabrics, which they are buying from China, will move to India. But if you are able to comply with all the norms and the right quality, I think a European market and US market will also buy a lot of PPE fabric.
So if Bangladesh and Vietnam apparel sale improve, is there any chance to improve fabric supply to these countries?
Yes, and this is one thing when we were talking about virtual integration. I think we have to go beyond boundaries. It's not only virtual integrations within India. We have to, our relations, we export almost $2 billion worth of yarn fabrics and fibers to Bangladesh. But when you go to deeper relationship with these garment manufacturers, still, I would say I have dealt with them. There is a lot of transactional relationship here. So that's what we are saying. When we want to increase supply to them, it's not that they want to ship from China or they have any, like, you have to go all out of the way, meet them, understand their needs, and start supplying fabrics to them. They will be open to buying from India, both of these countries. I've seen personally, but sometimes we go and talk. I have numerous examples. That's why I'm quoting. Sometimes we go and talk, the owners come back, and then samples don't come for 10 days because it's a newer market they're evaluating, and even samples come without those details which are needed. So I think these are big markets. They're established garment manufacturing centers: Vietnam, Cambodia, and Bangladesh. And Indian fabric suppliers should go all out of the way to collaborate and supply to them.
So Prashant, except Bangladesh, do you think these countries have enough resources
for
production, manufacturing of garments?
Yeah.
Even if we supply, are they well equipped?
Yeah, see, lately, if you see Vietnam, if you take an example, if you are saying other than Bangladesh, Vietnam in 2017, there was an investment of $10 billion invested by Japan, Korea, China, and Taiwan. So all these countries almost invested $2 billion each. They have created a lot of capacities, not only for garments. Earlier, Vietnam used to have only 10% of yarn and fabrics. Now they have moved to almost 20-25%. They are expanding the capacities across value chain. Bangladesh also. So you have to move forward, assure them that we are your supplier. You don't need to invest big way in fabrics and yarns. That's the way forward. I think these are big growing markets. Yes, Vietnam will have challenge because there are other industries also coming up fast there. So that's a challenge for a country like Vietnam where options are many.
Okay, Prashant, can India also offer value-added products like antimicrobial, antivirus product apparels, so already, that our Indian share will improve?
Yeah, already most of the manufacturers we are talking to who are established players, they are already supplying these finishes, antibacterial, anti-virus finishes at same cost what they were supplying, at least in home textiles, bed sheets and all. So they are already supplying. It's not that we can. We
So
already people have developed these
just
options.
so just out of curiosity, has anybody come out with a fabric which is anti-coronavirus?
So that you can brand it, and if somebody accept it, that's a different issue.
No,
And
Priyanka, I'll tell you that
Yes.
is either kurta pajama or shorts and t-shirts. But wear it and stay at home. They are very effective.
Corona.
So true. Thank you, Harminder. Vikas
Super
wants to
effective.
know.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, totally. Vikas wants to know, you mentioned shift in investment shift and a sourcing shift. Is India geared to capitalize on this shift? How do you see the shift in the long run?
So when we are having these presentation, actually to talk to people so that they gear up. So India is honestly never geared up for this. And it didn't happen in 2005, didn't happen in 2008. So already investments are there and unorganized sectors are there. I think I would say instead of gearing up for investments, if collaboration is the first step, next step is the investment. This is how one should talk about. And I am optimistic this time people should come forward.
Okay. Mr. Jayavant wants to know, what are the expected price pressure on yarn exports?
See, honestly speaking, yarn exporters who have, so for example, everybody, all those who are into yarn business, they know that Chinese are the only one who have started buying from last 10, 15 days, some quantities here and there. And they are asking for 15% lesser prices because cotton prices have gone down, polyester prices have gone down, while all of them have bought cotton at a higher price points. So it is a dilemma for them that higher price cotton, market price have gone down, and what price point. So definitely, when there is a pressure to sell, the price points will be down at least by 10-15% for yarn business. It can be more than that.
I think, Prashant, we're running out of time. So maybe just last question, or rather...
Priyanka, I'll just if you allow me,
Yes.
been through this thing. A lot of people have been asking about the domestic market, that what will be the impact on domestic market. So if you allow, I'll just spend 2 minutes.
Please, Harminder, we would love to know.
So what I'll do is that I'll share a very simple slide, which is part of the presentation which we are building for domestic market. Just have a look at this. This is how we are looking at the scenario, right? So we are saying there are three probable. Can everybody see it?
Yeah, we can see it. So
yeah, we all can see it.
Okay. Yes. So what I'm saying is that there are three scenarios which we are looking at, which is we are calling it scenario one, which is third, that by 40 days lockdown and then it will start opening. But if it goes to May 31st, then it's like 70 days and then it could go to June 30th because there are many other parts of the world where it is actually already happening. So what will happen is that when if it's only LD40, I think most of us will be quite okay. And like I put the consumer response will be like Jaan bachi laakho paaye. We are theek hai, musibat thi tal gayi, we are all right, and they come back optimistic and they will take it in stride. But if it becomes 70, LD 70, then it's still, then will be very neutral. There will be a lot of pressure on mind, but still we'll say ki jaan hai, jahan hai. Realistically, we'll come back. But if it becomes LD 100, then this will literally, we are dead. Jaan nikal gayi. It will be very pessimistic scenario which we'll be looking at. So it's not that, and in the next slide, I'll show you that how it's going to happen further. That longer the lockdown, slower will be the recovery. So if you look at the first from bottom, if it's a 40-day lockdown, we will recover to 60-70% of normal sales. 60-70, not 100%. 60-70% of normal sale, let's say in 30 days time. But if it is 70 days, then it may take another 45 days. But if it is 100 days, then at least 75 more days, 2.5 months before we come to 60-70% of normal sales. So just look at the total impact of that. 40 days lockdown means 70 days, 70 means 115, and 100 means 175. And these are all best estimates we are talking, right? And I'm not trying to be very pessimistic about these things. This is how it's going to be. And because of that, if you look at in apparel category, in LD40, we believe the fall will be around 20-25% on annualized sale. By the end of the year, we'll have a 20-25% reduction in the overall sales. But the moment we move to LD70, the impact could be 35 to 40%. But the moment we go to LD100, then market may come down to half of what it was last year. So you can imagine the amount of impact it will have on the finances of everybody involved, because the business will become half of what it was last year. But this is how it looks like. But let's hope the scenario LD100 doesn't play out. But right now, nobody can say whether it will play out or not play out. I think we all need to prepare very, very well. But not to end our discussion on a pessimistic note that this is how bad it will be. When we are talking with the virtual integration and looking at the exports market, that's where lies the answer, that while demand in domestic will dip, right, we will have capacities available. Because earlier we used to say, can garment exporters supply to domestic market? Now we need to look the other way around. Can domestic manufacturers be capable of supplying to exports market? Right? Can we give very, very competitive prices because we have capacity available, we have raw material available, we have labor which is available, which we are anyway supposed to pay. I think, can we look for those answers, putting export and domestic market together as manufacturers and look for answers to still survive through this 1 year? Because I am very confident that whichever scenario plays out, next financial year we'll be all right, we'll be back to normal. But the real worry is that how do we survive through this period? And there we need to, at every company level, at our own micro level, we need to find solutions.
This was really, really informative and great analysis. Thank you, Harminder. With this, I would like to ask your one last question. What is the scope for the freshers or the newcomers in the garment industry? Is it the dip, or can they at least see some light at the end of the tunnel?
No, for them, it's a very good scope. You should see, when newcomers want to come into this business, they should definitely explore the new segments, which are emerging segments. Market is big. We have identified, for example, and in these emerging segments, because these international retailers are coming, there is a market for domestic as well as for exports. So newcomers should come into this industry, understand differently the way business is done. Instead of talking about India average of 45% of productivity, why can't we 70%, 80% productive? Why can't we come with better technology, better automation to give the delivery times and the right cost? So all of a newcomer will not have a baggage. So I would say newcomer with new mindset, right technology, and right productivity is in for a big game in this market.
Wow. May I request all three of you all to give your concluding remarks on the pandemic and way forward? Maybe in just 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah. So as we have given in presentation, I would only say that we are all of us in this boat together. So instead of worrying about what's going to happen in future, one should look for what we have said are the trends, see that how it can fit in their business, and then plan the way forward is the best thing. Those who do this positively will be the winners.
Harminder, 2 lines from you.
Yeah, sure. No, I think, I feel if we play it right, I think we will come out stronger out of this crisis as textile and apparel industry, domestic and exports put together. And 3 sentences I'll use instead of 2. One is that in the short term, we need to focus on our own strengths and what we are good at doing it, and offer that as the most competitive prices so that our utilization, etc., we keep at a high level. Second is that in the medium term, we should look at new markets like Japan, because nothing can happen in a month or 2 with Japan, but medium term, we should look at those kind of markets. A lot of people have been asking why we have not been able to do that. I would say that you think about yourself. You see that now I want to do it. You should be able to do it because they are very receptive right now to look at it. In the long term, then we need to look at synthetic textiles and other categories which we don't have any share in the global market. And I think as an industry, we need to address that gap.
Perfect. Varun?
I think it's already been concluded very well by both Prashant and Harminder, so there is no other point. I think the most important point here is to improve our competitiveness in our core categories. That's the first message of Harminder. Also, we can't overemphasize it. Whatever we have it, we should at least ensure that the utilization of that should be to the maximum extent possible. It's actually many people have pointed out that why we are not able to do this thing, I think it is all because of our inherent challenges that we have. So manufacturing excellence is the key mantra for us to grow. Beyond diversification, everything we can do in a short to medium term, but manufacturing excellence on the immediate basis, that is going to be the requirement, important requirement. I'll just like to add one more point here. Many people have been asking for this presentation. So I've already posted a link once on the message. I'm just going to do it right now also. Maybe you can share it at a later stage also. So anybody who wants to download our presentation, there is a link there on the website, on the chat panel. You can just click and download it. Thank you so much.
We will also send them in the thank you emailer, so they will get a copy of this presentation.
That's perfectly fine.
And Priyanka, one more thing, because all the GATEX with MEX exhibition and Messe Frankfurt, it's kind of family for us now. So if
Yes,
your members,
absolutely.
if you give the mailers, I have a team, we keep on coming out with these reports. If you
Sure.
provide the mails to Varun, we will start sending these reports with a CC to you so that they are in regular subscription. Nobody has to remind it. So this is also one way forward for us.
Thank you so much, Prashant. This is really nice of you. And that was really a fantastic session. On behalf of GATEX Exprocess, I thank Wazir Advisors for sharing their valuable insights with our audience. Wishing you good health and peace ahead. Hoping to see all of you soon in August at the GATEX edition.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
a lot.
Prashant.
All the best for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Varun.